So today I wanted to talk about something that was in the news a lot, that a lot of people know, and of course nutrition's my specialty and I love it, so I always want to talk about it as much as I can. So today I want to talk about some facts and fallacies, particularly about some superfoods. I'm pretty sure that everybody's heard of something or other that's been called a superfood time and again. The term has been around for years, even since, the turn of the 20th century, but in the past few years too, it's really become popular. Look at any magazine or even newspapers, and you'll see a new superfood or super drink or super herb or something like that every week. So I just wanted to talk about some of the ones that I feel have been around for either a while or just really heavily promoted and what they really are. So one definition that's actually been around for quite a while of a superfood is a food that's considered especially nutritious or otherwise beneficial to health and well-being. So that's generally the promoters of such foods really go into the especially nutritious part of it. So I'll be talking a lot about that. So the first food I want to talk about is goji berries. Has everybody heard of these at all? They're one of the new super berries. They're kind of the follow-up to acai, which was the big thing, a couple of years ago and still is in everything now. These have all sorts of health claims. One that you'll find on most of the websites, it's the most nutritionally dense food on earth. It has everything. It has antioxidants. It has numerous vitamins. It has more than 18 amino acids. There's only about 22 that are really used for humans. So it's been used for thousands of years in ancient societies. It cures cancer, prevents heart disease, and of course it boosts the immune system. Because, that's always important.
Autoimmune diseases are awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at some of these things here. As you saw in the picture, goji berries, they're actually the berry of an evergreen plant that grows in the Himalayan areas. So that's kind of where they are. They're usually sold dried. They're kind of like raisins. They taste like berries, or they have kind of a nutty flavor if you're wondering what they're like. So let's look at the amino acids and protein. Yes, they do contain amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks for protein. But everything, just about everything, contains amino acids. Plants and animals, we all need to build proteins in order for our bodies or the plant stocks to grow, to metabolize nutrients, and to do everything that they need to do. The difference is that just because it contains amino acids doesn't mean it's a good source of protein. Humans really need to eat something called complete proteins because there are certain amino acids that we can't eat. Most plants are not complete proteins. Goji berries are one of them. In fact, there's only a couple of plants that meet that complete protein criteria. So it's not worth even mentioning the amino acid content if it's not in the superfood context, because it's not a complete protein that's really going to provide you that extra nutrition. You'll still need to supplement with other foods. Then the next, the next issue is the antioxidants. So quickly, I'm sure everybody's heard of antioxidants. They're one of the biggest buzzwords out there in health and nutrition. There are a few really well-known, really well-researched and recognized antioxidants for the human body. Vitamin C is one. Vitamin E is another. Beta-carotene and some carotenoids, which are similar compounds to beta-carotene. And those are the ones that we know work, and we know that we need them. And they're actually widely available in a lot of foods. Now, if you'll look at the nutrition facts label there, which I will point out, I ended up getting from a site that was selling goji berries simply because I couldn't find it anywhere else. So, take it with a grain of salt because they always want to make things sound better. But you'll notice on here, goji berries do contain vitamin C, which is awesome, but it's only 20%. So it's not like it contains all of your vitamin C in a small serving. And they don't mention vitamin E on there. So it does contain an antioxidant, but the antioxidants that they're most promoting in goji berries are things called flavonoids. Now, there's all sorts of different names for these. These are compounds that in vitro studies, so like in petri dishes, have been shown to have anti-cancer properties, anti-cardiovascular disease, like anti-lipid oxidation properties, things like that. But most of the research either focuses on what's happening in a petri dish, or very little bit of it looks at what's in animals. And you can't extrapolate those effects in a very controlled petri dish to what happens when you eat a berry in your typical daily life outside of that petri dish. And the evidence for flavonoid antioxidant properties in the human body is really conflicted. There's really no conclusive evidence either way. There's a lot of study that is going into it, but we really need to know a lot more before we can really tell if the flavonoids are even worth, not that they're not worth eating, but if they really provide that extra antioxidant value in the body, or if the effect is really only seen in the petri dish. And another thing to point out, just as kind of a side note with goji berries, the vast majority of the research that is done, which is very minimal, is funded through a company that sells goji berries. So again, it's good to be critical of these things. Where is the research coming from? Not that it's not necessarily good research, but we do know that only those companies are funding this research. There isn't as much independent research, which makes you wonder, why isn't there any independent research? And then there's actually a possible drug interaction. There has been some evidence. We do need further study, but there has been some evidence that people who are on blood thinners like Coumadin or warfarin, they can have an adverse reaction when they're taking goji berries. The goji berries can sometimes thin the blood too much, which is a big problem. And that's something that they don't mention in their health claims at all, which is important for people to know. So superfood, yay or nay? Well, it's very similar to other berries, like strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, cherries, all sorts of berries. It's very nutritionally similar. Most of the calories come from carbohydrate. They're not good sources of protein, and they do contain vitamin C. So really, these berries don't contain anything that we don't already have in a lot of common foods. Sometimes the source and safety of the product can be questionable just because it's a natural health product. It's not always well regulated. And also, the main companies that are selling these are multi-level marketing corporations. So you want to be careful with those as well. Bottom line, they are a berry. They can contribute to your fruit and vegetable intake. If you like them, they can be included in a healthy diet, absolutely. But they're not necessary for health because we know that we can already get everything that they have from other foods that are common in our diets. So the next food is wheatgrass. This one just won't quit. There's always a new health claim for wheatgrass out there. These are just a few of the claims. Detoxification all the time. More nutritionally dense than most vegetables. It prevents and cures diseases, all kinds of diseases. You name it, it cures it. It's a high source of chlorophyll, which is important for our diets. And it's a high source of enzymes, which we need for proper digestion. Stabilizes blood sugar, blood pressure, basically anything that could go wrong in your body, it cures it. So what's the evidence with this? Well, it's really limited. I did a PubMed search for this just to see what was out there, and I came back with 5 studies, only 2 of which dealt with wheatgrass actually being consumed as a food and the effects in the human body. Most of the studies were discussing growing conditions of wheatgrass and soil conditions and that. And just to clarify, wheatgrass is actually just the very young shoots of the wheat plant from which we get wheat flour, which makes our breads and our pastries and all those lovely things. So it's not a different kind of food at all. It's something very common. We just eat it at a different stage. Now, I'll just skip ahead. I'm going to talk about the nutritional profile. This is an excellent table that I found. You see wheatgrass on the left there compared to broccoli and spinach, two other green vegetables. And you can see that they contain many of the same nutrients, and they're very similar. And there's really not too much difference. In some cases, spinach wins by a long shot, like the beta carotene. But there's not a huge difference between these three vegetables here. So for them to claim that it's more nutritionally dense than most vegetables or any other vegetables is completely false, because we can see here, it's not. It may have slight amounts more of some nutrients than others, but all vegetables have that. So there's really no evidence here to show that it's better in that way. Now the chlorophyll claim. Now this one's been around for a while. It was popular a few years ago. It's not as popular now, but I wanted to clear it up anyway. Yes, green plants are full of chlorophyll. That's what makes them green. It's a pigment. It's also the compound that lets plants make energy and build themselves using the sun's energy, right? It's very, very important for plants to have it. If they can't get enough or they can't do it, they can't grow, they can't live. Humans don't need chlorophyll. We get our energy from eating plants, not from using the sun to grow. So for us, when we eat something that has chlorophyll, it ends up just becoming energy. We break it down, we get energy out of it. Chlorophyll doesn't serve any metabolic purpose in our body. We absolutely have no need for it. So, not that it's bad, we just really don't need it. We just eat it up. There have been some people saying, well, it's been shown that a diet high in plants that are high in chlorophyll is very beneficial, lower incidence of disease, greater longevity. But they're really misconstruing the facts, because plants that are high in chlorophyll also tend to be high in vitamins like riboflavin and folic acid. They tend to be high in fiber. They tend to be full of nutrients that we do need, that are proven to be part of a healthful diet. So the longevity, the lower incidences of disease is most likely due to the high nutrient content, not the chlorophyll.
Are you saying that eating plants is good for us?
Yes, absolutely. You should know that, Jem.
Shocking.
The last claim on here, the enzymes. Plants do create enzymes because they need them. Enzymes are types of proteins that help reactions happen. Humans also create enzymes. When we eat enzymes from plants or other animals, they're just protein to us because we break them down, so they don't have any function in our bodies. Any enzymes that we need, we make. There are some people who have metabolic problems that don't produce those enzymes. That's a completely different story. But eating something that has enzymes in it really isn't going to provide beneficial digestion to you.
Is that because the enzymes are different than the ones that we create?
Yes,
Okay.
they are different. Every enzyme is built to do a specific purpose. Plants do different things in building themselves and in creating different parts of themselves than humans do. So our enzymes are different.
Even if they were the same, we couldn't utilize them unless we broke them down first, could we?
Generally, that's the case, yeah. Protein gets broken down into the amino acids that I was talking about in our stomachs, and then they get absorbed as small little bits of protein. So, yeah, if we could use them, we'd have to find a different way to get them to us than eating them, because we just break them down. So that's a very good point, Ashlyn. So superfood, yay or nay? Anybody? Nay. Yeah. As we saw on the chart, wheatgrass is really nutritionally equivalent to other green vegetables. I would say that it's less tasty than other green vegetables, but you know, everybody has their own tastes. The methods of action. Oh, sorry, Donna. I have smelled it, and it smells bad.
But it's always the juice, right?
It's generally the juice. I mean, I'm sure you could eat the grass, but it's grass, and we don't digest grass very well, so it'd be a whole lot of fiber. So it would kind of just go through you. And
yeah, you need the fiber from the vegetables anyway.
Exactly. If you really liked wheatgrass, if you liked the taste, it's got some nutrients in it, but it's... I don't have a good answer. If you really like it, you can include it in part of a balanced diet. I'm not going to tell you not to, but there are other green vegetables out there that are as nutritious or more nutritious, likely cheaper, easier to come by. You don't have to go to, Booster Juice or someplace like that to get it. You can get green vegetables at any grocery store. And finally, the methods of action that they keep saying happen just simply don't work in the human body. So in terms of those, it's really not a superfood. The last food I want to talk about was green tea today. We've heard a lot about this. It's really the new popular drink. In fact, it's gained a lot of popularity compared to coffee here in the West. So there has been there's been a lot of interest, both in researchers and in the public. So some of its claims, again, a high source of antioxidants, helps prevent or cure disease. Particularly, you'll hear about cancers or cardiovascular disease are big ones. Promotes weight loss. This is a really big one in the weight loss diet program world. And again, improves insulin tolerance, decreases blood pressure. Again, it's one of those you name it, it cures it kind of foods. So some of the evidence for this. Research is in its infancy stages for green tea at best. Some of the makers of a green tea extract were trying to put a health claim, a nutritional health claim on some of their products, saying that it could help prevent cardiovascular disease. And the FDA in the United States actually recently denied them and made them take off this claim. Because the research that they were using was mainly, again, it was in vitro trials and a couple of animal trials. And there's really no randomly controlled trials. There's nothing further than that to say that, yes, this food actually has this benefit in a living human being that lives a daily life. So I'm not saying that one day we won't know whether or not it does. Right now we simply don't. So we can't make that claim. Yes, Jan?
So is that the general progression of research then? We start with in vitro, then we go to animal, then we go to humans?
Generally, that's how it goes, particularly in pharmaceutical and in nutritional research. We start in a petri dish, we start with certain compounds, then we go to animals. It's usually mice, sometimes rats, depending on what they're looking at. Then we go to human trials, but then there's also many levels of human trials before we can really come up with an answer or a dosage of a certain food or drug or something like that. So to take conclusions from in vitro or petri dish trials and say you should take this much in your daily life is a huge step, and there's so many areas that we just don't know about in there. There's also been some research in cancer prevention or reduction and heart attack reduction in some populations that consume a lot of green tea. These are epidemiological studies, which are important for us to know about how things seem to work. But again, there's a big gap between those and the making a formal conclusion about something. So there is some evidence out there, but it's really in its infancy stages, and we really need to go a lot further before we can make any of these claims. The next thing, the weight loss claim. You'll see a lot of weight loss products that have the green tea or green tea extract in them. There have been a couple of trials done where they used a green tea extract as their test group, and they had a couple of control groups as well. And in those two trials, the green tea group had a 4% increase and an 8% increase, respectively, of calories burned. But if you look at, which sounds okay, but when you look in the greater context, that means that they were burning about 80 to 160 calories more per day than anybody else. So over the span of a week, that's not even half of a pound that those people are burning more than green tea. So not that that's not a contributor to weight loss, absolutely, but it's definitely not the cure-all, don't change your life, don't change your diet, just do this and you'll lose 3 pounds a week kind of thing. Yes?
Could they have been more active because there's more caffeine in there than not getting it at all?
Well, and that's something too, it's unclear. Green tea does have some caffeine, it has less than coffee, but yes, if you're a caffeine drinker and you start drinking green tea, then perhaps you have more energy, you're awake longer, you're doing more as well. So that's part of it too.
So stick to coffee.
So stick to coffee. In case anybody is wondering, like I said, green tea does have caffeine. It has about a quarter of the caffeine of a cup of coffee. So if you want a lower caffeine alternative, green tea might be good if that's something that you like. However, a lot of the proponents of green tea say that you should take the extract 4 or 5 times a day or drink at least 5 cups a day. So over the course of a day, you're probably racking up as much caffeine as you would in your 1 or 2 cups of coffee in that day. So that's something to think about. Yes?
I was wondering, when you talk about green tea, I understand there's a difference between what's really considered green tea and oolong tea. And it's often labeled as green tea here, so I was wondering.
I know that there is some difference. I'm not exactly sure. Is oolong often considered white tea?
I think it's a black tea.
Well, yeah, I'll actually clear that up. Green tea is the exact same plant as black tea. Green tea, white tea, and black tea are all made from the exact same leaves. It's just the method of production. Green tea is, after it's cultivated, it's dried and steamed, and then it's broken up into small bits, and you steep that. White tea is lightly fermented, or it's younger leaves. I can't remember exactly. You'd have to go look that up. And then black tea is more fermented, which gives it its dark color, and then it's dried and chopped up. So in terms of the difference between the two, there's probably a difference. You'd have to really go and look it up. I'm really not an expert in tea myself, but that would be interesting to know for sure. And then the last claim, I'll get to it here. Again, the antioxidants. Like every superfood, it's full of antioxidants. The antioxidants they're talking about in particular are called catechins. You'll probably see that. It's also known as EGCG. You'll see that on green tea extracts a lot. This, again, is another type of flavonoid. And like I mentioned before, we're really not sure. There's really no conclusive evidence either way about how the flavonoids work. We're really just getting into this area of research. So while they may contain these, whether or not they have a benefit to the human body once consumed is really up for debate. So superfood, yay or nay? Yeah. That's not a bad answer. In terms of a drink, tea in itself has minimal calories. It would be maybe 1 or 2 per cup, which is really negligible. So it's a good non-caloric beverage to fit into a healthy diet. You know, it's something other than water. It's something nice and hot. So it can be a healthy source of hydration. Its disease-fighting claims are really not substantiated. Research results are often mixed or confounded by other factors in the study or poor study design. And for most of these things, the research is still in its infancy. And unless you really like it, it doesn't need to be added to your diet for improved health and nutrition. If you do like it, though, there doesn't seem to be any problem with consuming it. And like I said, it can be lower caffeine if that's something that you're looking for. So my final thoughts on nutrition. I really like this quotation. It's from the American Dietetic Association. The concept of superfoods has captured the interest and imagination of consumers. However, it is more important for the public to eat a super diet than concentrate on individual foods as the key to good health. And that's really the message that I want to bring back to it. This idea of superfoods, it's good to know that there are really nutritious foods out there, but on the whole, it matters what you eat all day, every day. Eating one beneficial thing doesn't cancel out all the chocolate bars that you ate. Or, that one 10-minute walk you took on Sunday doesn't cancel out all the TV watching and sedentary activity you did the rest of the week, right? So it's all about what you do. And we know that eating a balanced diet that includes lots of vegetables and fruit, whole grains, and a good source of calcium with adequate protein, that we know that this is a healthful diet that leads to healthy people. And that kind of diet is based on balance and variety. It's not about eating one kind of food. It's about eating all kinds of food. So the idea of superfoods really restricts you to that one kind of food, which means that you may be missing out on all the other great foods that we know are already super out there. So the next time you see a superfood, just think to yourself, how is this a superfood? Do I need to have this in my diet? And, what are the claims that are associated with it? So I hope that was a little enlightening for you. Like I said, I'm really interested in these kinds of things, so I hope it was enjoyable for you.
Any questions?
Any other questions?
What do you know about that probiotic yogurt?
You know what? If I had more time, that was one of the topics I was going to talk
Because
about.
I like yogurt. I'll just eat yogurt. I don't really care if it's. The only trouble I have is now they're selling it for the same price in these little tiny cups, so I got to eat a whole darn case of the stuff. But is there anything to this probiotic?
Again, there is some evidence, and that's really the most conclusive answer I can give. For anybody who doesn't know, probiotic yogurt uses specific types of live bacteria that are thought, or there's some evidence showing that they have beneficial activity in your gut that they can crowd out the bad bacteria that can make you sick. So this is the idea behind it. There is some evidence that this is a good thing, but we also know that yogurt in general, even without the specific probiotic cultures, is a good and beneficial food that contributes to a healthy diet, healthy weight, and that. So the jury's kind of out yet. They're still doing more research. Maybe in a few years we'll have a conclusive answer, but right now we just don't.
My favorite part about them is how they add extra names to the end of the genus and species to make it sound really friendly and awesome in the commercials that don't actually have any merit.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah, or it's a super subspecies, and it's, yeah. Brendan?
Just to the probiotic thing, if I remember right, Activia and a couple other of the yogurt companies actually got sued and lost some lawsuits over putting that stuff on their labels before there was enough science to verify it. I don't remember specific cases, but...
Yeah, I don't remember either. Like anything else, when there's a new discovery, it gets blown out of proportion, and it's the newest, greatest thing. But, there's definitely a case for more research there, which is always good, because if we can learn something about a food that we're eating, that's always great. But the jury's out.
Do you want to maybe differentiate between prebiotics and probiotics?
Okay, quickly. Probiotics are bacteria, okay? Prebiotics are types of fiber or a carbohydrate, which is starch, that feed these probiotics. Probiotics, these bacteria, really like these certain types of fibers. So you'll see often breads will say prebiotics. They've put a certain type of fiber in. It's usually called inulin. If you see that in your bread, that's the prebiotic. It's supposed to feed the good bacteria in your gut so that they grow more, that will crowd out the bad bacteria.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the probiotics are like the lions and the prebiotics are like the Christians.
Yes, Jem.
Is that inappropriate?
All right. I could honestly talk all day about nutrition. I really love it. So if you have more questions, find me later. I'd be happy to chat. But I will let us all go for a break now, I think.
Yeah.